now 7 p.m. Call the meeting to order with a roll call vote. Ms. Oswald?
Present.
Dr. Von Elliott?
Present.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Ms. Moore-Real? Present. Ms. Lane?
Here.
Dr. Coleman? Present. Dr. Beckwith?
Present.
Would everyone please speak into the microphone? Yes, thank you. It's been brought to my attention that an item I approved is on the agenda, but it was supposed to be approved for discussion and action. So I'm going to request a motion to amend the agenda so that item 8B can be for discussion and action. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Did you call for a question?
I did not, you have a question?
What item was that?
Item 8E?
The wayfarer in place.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. We will now move to Riverview Excellence.
Good evening, Special Administrative Board members, Dr. Pruitt-Adams, colleagues, and community. Tonight for Riverview Excellence, we're going to be honoring 3 excellent individuals. Monica Williams, the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources. Ms. Juanita Shaw, a social studies instructor at Westview Middle School. And Dr. Lynn Beckwith Jr., Special Administrative Board member. For the reasons, Ms. Williams has obtained her superintendent certification after completing her coursework at the University of Missouri St. Louis. She sat for her superintendent's exam and she passed with flying colors. So we want to honor Ms. Williams for getting her superintendent certification. Also, Ms. Juanita Shaw at Westview Middle. She's seeking to make history by becoming the first Black woman in the region to complete the True X USA Four Corners Tour. Now, Ms. Shaw, she is an avid athlete, endurance athlete. She used to play football. She's always very active, but this True X USA Four Corners Tour is a motorcycle ride across the 4 corners of the United States through the center of the country. So she'll be going through Maine, Florida, California, and Washington, all going through Kansas, and she has to do it in 26 days to qualify. So we're just honoring her. She's gonna provide a YouTube link and some information so we can follow her trip as we get closer to that, but that's upcoming in June, and so we wanna wish her the best of luck. And for Dr. Beckwith, Dr. Beckwith will have the St. Louis County Library Administration Building named in his honor. We learned of that in December of 2020, but it's actually coming up. The dedication is going to be April 28th, I believe at 10 a.m. At 1412 South Spady Road in Frontenac, Missouri. And so it's just a great honor. It shows your dedication to the library. We appreciate your dedication to Riverview Garden School District. And so Dr. Beckwith is having a building named in his honor. So we want to salute him for that. That's all I have for Riverview Excellence, unless there's any questions. Thank you.
Madam President, the door needs to be open for.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Dr. Beckwith. Dr. Beckwith, when I saw that, I hope I'm not putting you on Front Street. Could you tell a little bit about your story about your mom and your library?
About,
Your mom and your library?
oh yes,
Take the mask off.
my mother
Speaking to
was
the
the
mic.
cleaning lady. Speaking to that, my mother was the cleaning lady at University City Library. And the librarians must have talked to her and said, your children need to have library cards. And she came home and she didn't ask us if we wanted library cards. She said, you're going to get library cards. That was a 25-minute walk from 4615 Kennel in the Ville up to the Sherman Park Library at what was Easton and Kings Highway. But those directions developed my love for reading. And 30 years later, I'm driving up the street for the first time in New City as superintendent of schools, and I thought, my mother was the cleaning lady at this library, and now her son is superintendent of schools. And now her son has a building named after him. And it just shows the power of education. She was not an educated woman, but what she said, you all are going to get a good education. 5 children, all with bachelor's degrees, 4 with master's degrees, and 2 with doctorate. So I know she's shining down from heaven saying, I told you so.
All right.
Right. So. And would you believe it? The library district has been in existence since 1947. And I'm the first black to serve on the board. And we only had the second one last year. And that was, the first one was the result of Charlie Dooley.
And then to Ms. Williams, you passed with flying colors. You want to talk a little bit about that experience?
I can, sure. Should I come to the podium?
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. So I'm going to say I probably received my EDS probably about 15 years ago. And just at that time, I wasn't sure where I was headed. And so I went to school. I went to WashU Human Resources. So I had already been a principal, already had administrator experience, and so didn't take the superintendent's exam. And then I decided, you know what, this might be something I want to do. So went back to school, completed the 4 courses last year, and then set for the exam. So I'm just excited for that accomplishment. It was more of a personal goal. And so here I am.
And she was one of our EDS students at UMSL when I was professor.
Yes.
We produce good stuff.
And to the young lady that's doing the motorcycle event, I knew about the regular one. That's about 7,000 miles because when my uncle was in the military, he came home one time and he attempted the regular one. But the true X one, that's about 11 or 12,000 miles. And it's slightly different, it's slightly more rough, is the word I want to use, as far as doing it. So I commend you, and please keep us informed of your progress, and congratulations to you. I wish you much success. Anyone else? Okay. We will now go to announcements. Okay. Oh, we already asked them about announcements. Did anyone else have announcements? No. I will whenever. Okay. Shay, do we have any patrons that wanted to speak before the board?
No, ma'am, we do not.
Okay. And at this time, I will turn it over to the superintendent for superintendent report.
And I have a lot to say. So I do want to those who are watching, as we gradually transition back to in-person board meetings, you should be watching us via YouTube, where we will be live streaming. We're wanting to move back to a more normal board meeting, and so we will no longer be Zooming unless it's ultimately necessary to do so. So thank you for your patience as we transition. I do want to say that this past Friday, April 22nd, Junior Precious Berry and several other young ladies from the metropolitan area received the Young Living Legends Award at the History Museum. They were being acknowledged for their contribution to social justice in the St. Louis area. And she represented Riverview Gardens proudly. You would have been proud. Also, I happened to be watching TV on Sunday and saw a feature about our ROTC and their participation in the 5th annual Laura's Run for the Little Bit Foundation. Not only did they post the colors, but they actually completed the run in their uniform. And so there was a brief feature on them on Channel 5. Ishmael has already indicated that on April the 28th, our own Dr. Lynn Beckwith will have the St. Louis County Library Administrative Building named in his honor. I am looking forward to being there for that ribbon cutting. Also on April 28th, we will have our first turnaround committee meeting and orientation. We'll see how that goes. Just a reminder that next week, May 2nd through the 6th, is Teacher Appreciation Week. So as board members, if you get a chance to just say how much we appreciate our staff for the job that they are doing in such treacherous and hard times. Also, on May 6th, we will have the North County Inc. 45th Annual Breakfast, to which many of us will be attending. One of the State Board of Education reps, who also represents this area, Ms. Pamela Westbrook Hodge, will be honored at that breakfast. When the State Board leaves that meeting, they will then transition to Riverview Gardens School District, where they will spend the day. They will visit Riverview Gardens High School. We've invited our area mayors to attend. Once we leave the high school, we will transition to Moline Elementary School, where they will have lunch with the 5th graders. And then when we leave there, we will transition to Westview Middle School. Also a part of their visit, Dr. Singleton has graciously agreed to be the tour guide. And so he will actually take them through our district so that they can see where our scholars go to school. On May the 7th, we will have our first in double-digit years board retreat with MSBA presenting in the morning and then the administrative team doing an orientation for you in the afternoon. It is our target that on May 10th, we will bring to the Board of Education a vendor for our turnaround. And then on May 17th, myself, Dr. Patton, Dr. Singleton, Ms. Moore-Real, and Dr. Kennedy will travel to Jefferson City and do another presentation for the State Board of Education on the state of our district. On the 19th of May, we will have our board retreat, of which all of our budget managers, including the Board of Education, will be present. On May the 24th, the State Board will then come here. And when we finish our regular SAB meeting, we will transition into a community forum. The meeting that night will be at Westview Middle School. And then on the 25th of May is the 8th graduation. You should all receive your invitations to that. And on May 26th, the Riverview Gardens High School graduation, you received your invitations tonight. They're working on a strict timeline. Keep your parking passes. On June 1st, because we know that our faculty and our staff have worked really hard in these difficult times, and so we're going to sponsor an end of the year celebration for them. That's the last teacher work day, and that's on June 1st. And then on the 14th, we plan to have the turnaround plan to submit to the State Board of Education, and that will close out school year 21-22. That concludes my announcement.
Thank you. We will now move to item 7 on our agenda, items for discussion.
That is me. This is also a new process. Moving forward as the superintendent, I will introduce the information items and the discussion items. So our first item for today, item 7A, is the program evaluation for the Library Media Center. This item is for discussion. At the conclusion of the presentation, we will take any questions. The presentation today is conducted by our librarians, Quala Sheely, Christine Atkinson, led by Ms. Tanya Ross, our curriculum coordinator. This presentation is in compliance with District Policy IM, Program Evaluations, and CSIP, Effective Instruction Goal 1, Strategy D. Ms. Ross?
Good evening, Special Administrative Board, Dr. Pruitt-Adams, colleagues, and the school community. Tonight, I am offering up a program evaluation for the Library Media Centers. The program evaluation is basically a report that gives information about our library media centers. Not just the physical center itself, which includes our print and various types of technology, but also the various media formats that are available to both our staff and our students. In addition, the program evaluation also provides information about our library media specialists who provide the services and help to facilitate the learning for our students and staff. It is our, but also,
If you are, excuse me, if you are in, please turn your mic on.
it is the goal of the Board of Education to provide circulating and reference and digital technology resources, as well as other materials to help support and supplement the educational needs of our students and our staff. And we are hereby in compliance with DESE that meets the requirements for the instructional media library centers. Our justification for our program of evaluation is to align with the Missouri Learning Standards for our library media specialists. Tonight, I have with me Ms. Christina Atkins, and she's our high school librarian, and also Ms. Carla Sheely from Gibson Elementary to provide our program evaluation.
My name is Ms. Atkinson, and I'm Carla Sheely from Gibson. This is the remaining staff that aren't here with us today that are joining us virtually from each one of the schools. We just listed their names so that you could see the staff for the schools that represent the library media centers.
Our circulation goal was reduced this year because we are serving in a different capacity in that at the beginning of the school year, we were not allowed to check out the hard copy books just because of germ transmission. So that has changed since October, I believe. So we are actually getting books in their hands, but prior to that, we were using online libraries. Am I not? Sorry, online libraries. Sora is an online library that we use. We also use World Book Online for students to, it's a great resource for research, and we also have started using Teaching Books, which is a great resource for both teachers and students. They have activities for students, but they also have lessons to help teachers with different books, so they can type in just about any book and it's going to be available, some resources for them on that book.
The goals for our library this year were to meet the district circulation goal of 125,000 books and to update our collections. And to increase the media and digital literacy, and we're going to show you how we did that through the next couple slides. In 2003, we started out with, in 2020, we had a average library, our libraries were dated at 2003 for our average book age. And we've managed to increase that to 2006 as of April.
Some of the schools even at 2010.
Yeah.
If we look at the attachment.
We also increased our usage of World Book Online too. World Book Online, as was previously stated, is really kind of a resource center for our students. They can look up information that normally we would have access to in the libraries, but because students weren't able to go to the libraries to research, especially at the beginning of the year, we increased the access digitally.
They also have access to that from home as well. Each year, the Little Bit Foundation does 2 book fairs at each school. So there's one in the fall and one in the spring where they deliver all those books to the students and they get to keep those books. We're trying to get more like a media center as well as the library by starting with makerspace and bringing in more technology with Chromebooks and desktops in each library. And the Scholastic Book Fair at my school, we raised $2,600, which I've used to purchase a book return, and we have beanbag chairs for students, and I just got a new carpet, and it's been very successful for me this year.
We keep talking about World Book Online, but this is kind of what the interface looks like, just so you can kind of see it, how students can, how it's split up into each section.
And it's good for preschool through high school. There's stuff for early learning pre-readers and very advanced things for students in high school. And they can access so much information for any project they're doing.
This shows the spike in the usage. You can see that in 2020 there was a spike in World Book Online, and then October of 2021 there was another spike in the usage there as well. This is just the data that visually represents how our students are using digital media when they don't have access to the actual books in the library due to COVID.
Just some pictures of students at different buildings in the district doing some of the makerspace activities. Sora is an online library resource that we have, and we have access to so many ebooks because of that.
So another thing about Sora is it's actually in partnership with the St. Louis County Library. So it gives our students access to digital resources, not just within our district, but also that are attached to the St. Louis County Library.
Just more pictures of scholars throughout the district promoting literacy, or what the different buildings were doing to help promote literacy with our scholars.
This particular slide shows one of the ways that at the high school we were able to promote literacy in our school district. We started in March with a Book Madness tournament. The goal was not necessarily that students had to read all the books, but that they would get exposure to them. So they were allowed to access a video or a YouTube video that promoted each one of the books. This was in partnership with our English classes, and then our teachers in their classes, they would vote on which book between however many, how they stacked up against each other. And then we were able at the end of the year, or currently right now, to offer a free book fair to our high school scholars, in which they were given the opportunity to actually take one of those books home.
And these are just some of the tools that are used to see what all we're doing in each library. It just gives access for Ms. Ross to see what each library is doing, how they are accessing World Book Online, how many books are in circulation at any time, how much Sora is being used, and so on.
And one thing that I would like to add to this too is we have a title-wise analysis, and this year specifically, it has allowed us to show the amount of books that are in our libraries that are diverse titles. And that lets us kind of have an overall, like, how are we serving our diverse population? Our next steps that we have looking forward into next year is we have the podcast or Padcaster studios that are going to be coming into each one of the libraries, which is going to allow our schools to create podcasts via portable green screens. We are, like we said before, we're looking to expand our maker spaces to where students can creatively use the library for invention, creation, not necessarily just to read, but to also explore other things as well. And then that's also facilitated through the Little Bit Foundation, which has donated kits for those maker spaces to increase our digital ebook collection. And then just to continue to update our libraries so that we can have a current library for our students.
21st century.
Yeah, 21st century. And then this is now the time that we're open for questions.
So with all the data that you collect, how will you use it to inform some of your future decisions around the library services for the children?
So I use the data in multiple ways. The first is using title-wise analysis. I can see the titles that I have in my library that appeal to my students. I also can look at and see which one of those titles are actually being circulated, right? So is Huck Finn being circulated in the high school? No, it's not. But there are other titles that are much more interesting, so we can make sure that we have more of those available and less of the other ones available. Also, we use, like I said, we look at our circulation at the high school, and if none of our reference section is being checked out, but we're noticing that there's a spike in World Book Online, then we know we need to push that, right? Because our kids aren't checking out those World Books anymore, they're looking at it online now. So that's another way that it kind of moves our decision making too. Teaching books, which is a program that we received training on this year, I can communicate with teachers on what they're teaching in their classrooms, and then I can provide for them specific resources that allows me to have. So teaching books kind of gathers all the information on each one of those titles, and it's just about every book you can think of, and it puts them in one place. And so I can have excerpts that are read via QR codes. I can have introductions to authors that I can push out to teachers. So that's some of the ways that I use the programs and what I have available to me to kind of guide how I use the library.
Do most of the books have the option of audio where you can read to the children that might have a disability?
Yeah, because we partnered with, or because we use Sora a lot, which partners with the St. Louis County Library, they have a huge access to audiobooks. And I would say every book that we're teaching in the classroom right now, especially the high interest ones, are available for audiobook through Sora. There's also other digital apps or digital platforms that they use at the elementary level. Sora is the main one that we use, but we also at the high school we buy Playaway as well in case they don't have access to their device. They can just check out a Playaway for any of those popular titles, and they just plug their headphones into it.
And there are filters on Sora too, so if students are looking specifically for audiobooks or read aloud books, they can use that as a filter to make it easy for them.
A question and then a comment. Diversity of collection, and I see these percentages, which to me are quite low. What does diversity include for the collection?
So diversity in collection, as I understand it, is that we need to have characters in our stories that represent the various different populations, not just one population, whether that's like racially or socioeconomically. However, we need to have books that kind of express a wide variety of experiences. I will say that right now at the high school library, we have a huge reference section that's outdated that we are currently just weeding out so that we can get rid of that, so that it can show really the books that students are checking out are those books that have characters in them that face the same obstacles that they face, that they can relate to in terms of race, socioeconomic status, and anything like that.
Also, I want to address that question. The actual data that you see represents the African American and the Latino and Spanish community, because usually Ms. Murrow asks about that specific part of the collection.
And my concern is I didn't see this as an opportunity where the highest percentage is 11%, I believe, and the lowest is 5.6. I would see that as an opportunity to get more diversity in the collection as time goes on.
I agree with you. In addition to that, I've noticed at the high school there's been an influx in our Spanish speakers where their English is, like, we just had a family that moved in from Colombia and they speak very little English. So at the high school we're also working on adding books, and we don't have very many that are specifically in Spanish as well.
And the comment is, the St. Louis County Library and the St. Louis City Library have merged their collection, so it is absolutely huge now.
Yeah.
But I think you have to get an updated library card to do with St. Louis. But I'd like for you to check that with the Lewis and Clark Library to make sure that it's true. I know I had to update mine to be eligible for both.
I just had to update mine as well, so that I could use both libraries.
And as a district, we update the library cards for our students through the virtual card at the beginning of every school year.
Very good, thank you.
Yes.
How are you monitoring the titles that are selected to ensure that African American and Hispanic Americans or Latino Americans are being represented in a positive light? So oftentimes in many of the novels, our characters are not represented positively, that they feed into certain stereotypes, and so, and some of those are great reads, but our students need to see more than subject matter where characters go to jail and have such negative adversity, and how are they being portrayed positively? How are you making sure that you're selecting those types?
So one way is, and you can see it in the Book Madness tournament that we did, and that's by providing a wide range of genres, right? Instead of having only urban fiction, which is what you're referring to as titles where someone goes to jail or where there's a teen pregnancy, instead of just focusing on that, also focusing on characters that are in fantasy, where they are the hero, where they are the main focus. Focusing on romance stories as well, or mysteries where they are a detective. So we do have a wide range of books that fit every genre, not just specifically urban fiction. Also, I think distinguishing our genres is important too, so that students know this is an urban fiction book and this is kind of what I'm looking for. This is a fantasy book and this is what I'm looking for.
And also across our district, several of our libraries are converting over to such an organization of collection. In addition, in the title-wise analysis report, and actually on Title Wave, which is the platform that we use to get the analysis of our collection, librarians have the opportunity to actually click on titles that provide summaries of the collections that's in their library, whether what's already there and to order additional resources. Thank you.
Before you leave, I think that you are the person that created.
Yes, I'm the senior class sponsor also.
Okay. These are beautiful. I just wanted to comment that they're beautiful. We were wondering who made them, so I wanted to put a face with a name.
Yeah, thank you. You'll be getting more of those every year. We send usually one out for the senior luncheon and then also for prom.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ladies. The next item, item 7B, is a travel report for April 2022. Coming forward to make the presentation is Ms. Barbara Sharp, Professional Development Coordinator. This item is in compliance with District Policy DLCA, Travel Expenses, and Policy GCL, Professional Staff Development Opportunities, in addition to CSIP Goal, under Effective Instruction Goal 3, Strategy B. Ms. Sharp.
Good evening to the Special Administrative Board, Superintendent Pruitt Adams, colleagues, and members of the community. Tonight, I am presenting the travel report, which includes all out-of-area travel that has been approved for April 2022. As a bit of background information, I will share with you that that travel report is traditionally shared with the Special Administrative Board. However, to address some concerns, the presentation is public and it provides opportunities for clarity to connect to any expenditures or specific concerns that may be expressed. As you examine the report, I request that you direct your attention beginning to the far left. And we'll move from left to right. There you will see headings. And the headings are organized by last and first name. by position and the title, the building, etc. Moving over to funding source. And I will explain that in funding source, that simply refers to where the payment for professional development occurs. It could come from PD 1%, professional development 1%, which comes from general funds, or could come from title or specific budget item for a department, for example, from the transportation department as an example. At the bottom of the page, you'll see descriptors that explain, I have some acronyms there. This is called the AVID conference, and that conference simply refers to advancement via individual determination. So the program seeks to meet the needs of generally first-year college students, and it also provides professional development that is scaffolded, broken down, so that it provides supports to educators and students to help them meet their needs and advance their career development. It also provides resources and additional supports to maximize their return as an investment. At this point, I will take any questions that you may have.
So you can personally number.
Yes, Ms. Sharp, thank you for replying to my question about the salary report. But you really didn't answer my question. You gave me the process used in the approval process. By the way, I didn't see Ms. Austin's name in the workflow. If she's approving it, she ought to be in that workflow. But my question was that there were 449 students enrolled at Gibson. They're sending 4 to the same conference. There are 713 Central Middle, they're sending 3. And the high school, which has 1,218 students, are only sending 2. My question was, why was Gibson sending 4 with this enrollment only about a third of the high school?
Dr. Beckwith, I'm going to answer that question.
Sure.
When we get the questions from the Special Administrative Board, I assign those responses. I immediately assign that to Ms. Sharp. However, I really should have assigned that to Ms. Lakina Curtis, who is our state and federal programs coordinator. So that's where the trip is coming from. In my conversation with Ms. Curtis, we already have AVID at the middle school and the high school level. And so as we begin to move forward as a district, next year, Gibson Elementary is the pilot school for what that looks like at the elementary. I did respond later, I'm not sure if you had an opportunity, because I was the one who misassigned that.
Okay, and that's the kind of explanation that I wanted, because I understood the process.
And it may
But
be,
let me ask Dr. Pruitt-Adams, why is Ms. Austin not included in the workflow if she's one of the approvers?
Because it was state and federal programs. And so initially, Ms. Austin was in the approval tree for that, but she is also out on medical right now.
She's out on.
Yeah.
my question might be a follow-up and could be answered tonight, but I was just curious whether or not the children who are in the middle are tracked to the point where they are experiencing AVID, those same groups of students and maybe additional once they go into high school, like are they being tracked to make sure that they're building upon what they're learning at each grade level and when they transition to another
That's a
program?
question I will have to follow up with Ms. Curtis on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is the district donations. I got it. This presentation is also an item for information. Making the presentation tonight is Dr. Tanya Patton, Assistant Superintendent for Student Support Services. This presentation is in compliance with District Policy KH and CSIP Goal Collaborative Culture.
Good evening, SAB members, Dr. Jorlin, colleagues, and community. As Dr. Jorlin stated, tonight I bring before you the district donation sheet. There are 4 donations that we've received that is being represented tonight. One is from Lucia Fairbanks' donation of $2,800 of school supplies. The second one is the Arts and Education Fund for Teachers to Highland School for $4,300. The third one is the Little Bit Foundation, $2,000 donation for our SIT scholars. And the fourth one is a Grambling State toiletry item for our SIT scholars as well. The affirmation donations are at, as Dr. Beckwith likes, no cost to the district. It is recommended that the SAB members accept this donation. These donations? Are there any questions? Thank you.
Our next item for discussion is item 8A, Missouri School Board Association Membership Renewal. As the board is aware, we are members of the Missouri School Board Association. It is time to pay our dues for the 22-23 school year for the services that are provided. As you know, our workshop on the 7th is provided by Missouri School Board Association. We have 2 members who will be representing us for MSBA. We also get our policies from Missouri School Board Association. And in addition, as we move forward, we will have 4 trainings each year through Missouri School Board Association. The budgetary impact is $9,702. And we would ask that the board approve the renewal agreement with the Missouri School Board Association and membership dues through June 30, 2023 in the amount of $9,702. And this will be brought forward at the next board meeting for approval. Are there any questions?
It does include the 2 new members is factored into that amount.
This is a part of our membership, I believe, the total.
Never give it a shake. Okay.
If there are no questions, then I move to the next item for discussion, which is item 8B, Transportation Supplemental Grant for $54,163.06, of which $52,792.33 goes to Riverview School District and $1,370.72 goes to our non-publics. Making this presentation is Dr. Levon Singleton, Chief Financial Officer. At the conclusion of his presentation, it is recommended that the SAB accept the transportation supplemental grant as presented. Dr. Singleton.
Thank you. Good evening, Special Administrative Board, Dr. Pruitt-Adams, colleagues, and community. Tonight, I will be asking the board to approve the supplemental grant application, as Dr. Pruitt-Adams stated, in the amount of $54,000 in excess and the excess change. As you know, DESE has released a number of grants related to CARES Act. This is a small grant, but nonetheless one that we certainly can benefit from. This is called the Transportation Supplement, and essentially what it does, it allows for school districts, or LEAs as they're called, to benefit from salary and benefit reimbursements for bus drivers, for aides. Another allowable use is, the cleaning and sanitizing of the buses. The allowable use that we've identified is for the reimbursement of fuel cost. We know that one of the causes are, lately, the rising fuel costs has certainly caused an impact to a lot of school districts in terms of purchasing fuel. We have identified this amount immediately, and so upon approval, we will file a report and ask for reimbursement for some of the transportation fuel costs that we have already expended in this fiscal year. That concludes that portion of the report. Are there any questions for me at this time?
Yes, Dr. Singleton, thank you for your response. You mentioned that we are seeking reimbursement for eligible gasoline fuel purchases. Is that for district vehicles or does that go to the bus company?
No. So we pay for the fuel. So even the fuel that the bus companies use, we pay for the fuel. So it does go to, it goes to our benefit.
I didn't understand that.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Elliott?
So with the funds, it could not be used for the cabs that's normally paid for the students in transition?
Oh, sure. I mean, there's a host of allowable uses. We just wanted to find the quickest use. And again, those monies will come just right back immediately. And so we looked at the general ledger. We saw that we've spent more than $100,000 in fuel cost already. And so it was just easy for us to take that cost there and apply for the grant. Yes. Okay. If there are no more questions, thank you. One.
The next item 8C, is the summary of fund balance report for the month ending March 31st, 2022. Again, making the presentation is Dr. LaVon Singleton. This item is in compliance with District Policy BIAA fund balance and CSIP Goal 2 under finance.
Thank you, Dr. Pruitt-Adams. As you all, as the slideshow would show, this is the summary of fund balance report for the 9 months ending March 31st, 2020, which will certainly bring us current with all of our financial reports. This is a monthly report we present to the board that summarizes where we are in terms of our finances, our revenues and expenditures. So the first page is always the page that I like to highlight and summarize because it really contains the big picture. And as you can see to the left, there are under general fund, teachers fund, debt service, capital projects, and food services. There are 5 funds. They all have a total. So as of the beginning of this fiscal year, we started with about $19 million in these funds collectively. Our year-to-date revenues are about $51 million. And just as a note, we know that the general fund and teachers fund are our 2 biggest funds, and that's generally where most of the revenues that we receive go into those funds. Our expenditures to date, and that's through the end of March, are totaling about $49 million, which leaves us with an ending fund balance right now of about $21 million. So as long as that revenue and expenditure number, as long as we're bringing in more revenues than we're spending, then we'll certainly add to the fund balance percentages. It's when we start doing the opposite that we certainly want to make sure that we're cautious in looking at those expenditures. Also, you'll see a negative $1 million in capital fund projects. There's a note there that clearly explains that. The Special Administrative Board had already approved a budget transfer. Okay, so at the end of the fiscal year, we take the $1.1 million that was approved to be transferred and we wipe that deficit out. Okay, and so that will certainly take care of the negative fund balance in the capital funds project. Page 2, if you will, and I'll just kind of be quicker through these pages because the summary page really highlights it all. Page 2 focuses more on the grant expenditures for the school district. So we've talked about title, we've talked about ESSER, and we're developing a lot of those plans as we speak. Also, we've got our school lunch and breakfast programs that are reflected here. The second column over says revised budget. That is the budgeted amount that we receive in grant revenues, our encumbrances or bills that we have obligated but not yet paid, and the actual expenditures of about $8 million, and we see that we still have about $11 million in expenditures according to what we budgeted. The next page, page 3, highlights the revenues, and again, same grants, the revised budget, the revenue budgets, about $29 million. So far, we have received about $7 million and roughly have about $22 million to go in outstanding collections. So I think we're doing fairly well in that category as well. The next page, 4, looks at the receipts over through each of the funds. And again, I mentioned those 5 funds earlier, so we kind of see as we receive monies in, our state formula monies, we see where those deposits are going. And so if you will look at the revised budget column, column 2, that $35 million so far has gone into the general fund, about $31 million into the teachers fund. Those are the budgets, I'm sorry. The actual amounts are $23.9 million and also the $20 million in the teachers fund. So those are the revenues accordingly, if you look at that third column over, that have gone into each of those funds, and you'll see the final column shows what's still outstanding for us to collect. The expenditures will read the same way. The second column is a budget. The third column shows the actual expenditures. Fourth column, the encumbrances, and then the final column on page 5 talks about what's available according to what we have budgeted. Page 6 deals with the revenues for the 9 months, and this looks at a year-by-year comparison. It's always good to see where you were this time last year and where we were this time in 2020. That was the height of COVID. And so as you see on the revenue side, in the general fund, we've been fairly consistent. This year, we've seen a little bit of an uptick in general fund revenues, and obviously a lot of that is related to the increase from Proposition E and so forth. The teachers fund, we've been fairly consistent, $19-20 million there year over year. And then the additional funds you see are there as well, debt service, capital projects, and also the food service fund. On the expenditure side, the very last page looks at where we were spending money year over year. So as of March 31st, 2020, in the general fund, we were spending about $18 million. In 21, roughly the same. And so again, we see almost a $3 million uptick in general fund spending for this year. A lot of that, again, related to salary benefits, a lot of purchase services. Those numbers are up as well. And then we see also what we've spent in the general fund. We gave raises. That's obviously a cause of an uptick over subsequent years. And so forth. So at this point, that concludes the summary of fund balance report. Are there any questions that I can answer at this time?
Madam Chair, just a quick question. When does ESSER fund stop?
So we've got 3 different buckets of ESSER monies. The first ESSER 1, I'm very glad to say that we have expended all of that. We got about $2.8 million. And we filed our final expenditure report about a week or 2 ago, and so those monies, we've got about another $700,000 left in revenue to receive. So to answer your question, that bucket of money ends September the 30th of this year, okay? The other 2 buckets, ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, they all end September the 30th, but of subsequent years. So September the 30th of 23 will be the end of ESSER 2 monies, and September the 30th of 24 will be the end of ESSER 3 monies. ESSER 2, we've got about $15.6 million. ESSER 3, we've got about $34.7 million. So we've got a lot of money to spend over the next couple years.
Are you, I guess I'm a superintendent as well, I know we're making some expenditures and, based on having those funds now.
Sure.
And not having those funds, I guess, in 24 or whatever, 25. What are we preparing? Are you preparing now?
Sure.
To make adjustments to not having those funds?
Well, that conversation comes up every day, and yes. So we often, and we have to operate in that mindset that these are temporary funds. They're going to do us well now, but we have to make good use of them. So one of the things that we're doing is doing those big ticket items, the rooftop units and things like that. We're trying not to create expenditures that will have to eventually be absorbed by the general fund. And so a lot of those expenditures are that. We are reimbursing ourselves for expenditures that we are currently using the general fund to pay and that are eligible for reimbursement. That's another way to build our fund balance. And so we expect that ESSER will put us in a position where we could, kind of do some things over the next several years. But yes, to answer your question, we're well aware that that money's going to come to an end, and nobody has given us any indication that they're going to come back with some new funds. So we're going to try to live within our means.
Madam President, I'm glad Mr. Jones asked that question because I'm always concerned about that we will build a house that will not stand once the money goes away. And one way you have a house that will not stand, you put too much money in personnel and it goes away, you got to lay people off. So thanks for asking the question.
I'm just going to add, we're looking at other ways of purchasing and how we expend dollars. We've talked about zero-based budgeting. So we are looking now at a means of being able to build sustainable fund balance by looking at how we expend our dollars.
I do. This may be something that we learn in our training, but first of all, I appreciate the acronyms that was included in our introductory packet. I looked for ESSER. I don't see it, but I do see something that says ESSA, every student succeeds at. But just based on your explanation to Mayor and listening to everything that you're saying, I'm sure we're going to get probably more detail on what these different funds mean. As a citizen, when you're just listening to these meetings and you hear all these acronyms without some kind of explanation as to what that is, for the public, just a little bit of explanation, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I forgot ESSER off the top of my head. I've become accustomed to ESSER, but it's Dr. Beck would help me. Elementary and secondary
education,
emergency relief, or something of that nature. I'll make sure you get it. But
those funds are temporary then?
yes, ma'am. So those funds were as a result of federal legislation to combat COVID. So those funds are tied to some kind of COVID relief or some kind of COVID mitigation. And so those are temporary funds, which means that they give them to you, you spend them, but when the time frame is over, then those funds are gone. And so you have to, as Dr. Beck said, build your house based on what you had prior to COVID.
And the ESA is every student success center.
Okay.
And that's federal dollars.
And Dr. Singleton mentioned that those are reimbursable funds. We have to spend up front.
Yes. So ESSER funds are reimbursable. And again, at the board retreat, I'll make sure that we really explain those and give good explanations. But these are reimbursable funds. So the district is expected to spend those monies up front and then file for reimbursement, which we typically get within a week or so. So it's not like we have to carry the mantle too long to get those funds back. Okay. But thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you. The next item 8D, is the paper online tutoring service. Making this presentation is Dr. Philip Kennedy. At the conclusion of his presentation, it is recommended that the Special Administrative Board approve the purchase of paper to assist our scholars in their learning, and that will come forward at another board meeting. And this item is in compliance with CSIP's Curriculum and Assessment Goal 3. Dr. Kennedy.
Thank you. Good evening, Special Administrative Board, Dr. Pruitt-Adams, colleagues, and community. Tonight I'm here to present an item for discussion on the product Paper. Paper is a online chat-based tutoring system. And what this does is that it gives our scholars instant and unlimited one-on-one tutoring services with a live educator. It is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It covers all the subjects that are necessary for us to cover. It is available in English, and as our high school librarian stated, it is also available in Spanish, which is going to help some of our new scholars that are coming in here that don't speak any English. And right now there's some struggles with them and our classroom teachers, so this will be a huge benefit for them. The tutors are employed by Paper, the organization. They don't contract anything out. They go through thorough background checks, and they are in compliance with federal and state privacy laws such as FERPA. So when educators are tutoring students, they use an instructional strategy called the Socratic Method. And what this is, they don't just give the students the answer. They ask them questions which probes critical thinking on the student's part, and it also will help activate prior learning. So, and having seen the demonstration of this, they do a really good job. And I can tell you that if a student, they probably just want the answer, but they do a great job of actually going through. They've been trained on it, and they receive updated training throughout the year. One other really neat feature through Paper is that they have essay reviews, and as a student, if I have an assignment for the essay, whether it be a paragraph or a paper, I can upload it into Paper, and one of the tutors will edit it for me. They'll highlight sentences or vocabulary words, and then they'll write little things out to the side, say, you might want to use a stronger vocabulary word for this, or you might want to put more emphasis in this sentence. Again, they're not giving them the answers. The student has to go back and look that stuff up themselves. But what this will do is help our scholars develop better writing skills through this editing process. So I'm pretty excited about that. The Paper platform works on any device, so it doesn't have to be Chrome. It could be pulled as secondary students who are always on the phone. They could be using the phone. The way that it works is that, so if approved, I'll work with Tina Adam Turnsey, and what will happen is that we'll use the rostering system that is in SIS K-12, and that'll go through Clever. So as a student, when I log on to the district webpage, all I have to do is click into Clever, and there'll be an icon there for tutor. And I'll log on, and when I log on, there'll be a question, and it'll ask, well, what can I help you with today? And once I submit it, I need to help with area and parameters. Then within 30 seconds on average, a tutor will pop up and say, hello, Phil, my name is John, and what can I help you with today? And so then that's when they'll start the Socratic Method. And again, looking at some of the examples, I might know step 1 to that, but I don't know step 2 or step 3. And so that's where the tutor will take me through that process. And so what happens is that each of the tutoring sessions are filmed, they're recorded, and so it's very transparent, and they do that for several reasons. Number one, it allows the teacher to go in and say, oh, you know what, I see that Phil logged in and he was looking at area and parameter, and I can see where the tutor had to take extra steps with him at this particular time in answering the question. It also allows for administrators to see it and just kind of get an idea, so that can inform my instruction as a teacher when I can see individually who's getting on, what they're asking for help for, and then when I go to plan my instruction, then I can go ahead and be more specific about what it is I need to help who with. So just another good piece of data. There are also administrative reports that will allow us to see the percentage of students that are requesting help in what subject areas, and it's broken down by the day of the week that they're requesting it. It's broken down by the hours during the day. So we can get some really good trend data. If we start to see, hey, you know what, we had a blank percentage of our high school students, let's say English 2 class, who really struggled, and they're online between 10 and midnight trying to figure this out, and they're getting assistance. So we can really kind of pinpoint some pretty cool data with that. It does come with unlimited professional development, and what I am recommending is that we do a 3-year licensing agreement. When I requested a quote, it came with a 1-year licensing agreement, a 2-year, and a 3-year, and the way that Paper figures out the cost is that they have a monthly cost per student. So if we would do a 1 year, that would cost us $4.39 per student for 12 months. So you multiply that by 12, and that will come out to $272,935.08. And then if you look at the 3-year, the price per student per month drops from $3.95, which gives us a substantial savings because it'll only cost us $245,579.40. So if we would do the 1 year, at that cost with the calculation, it'll come up to $818,805.24 versus the amount that I'm requesting through ESSER funds at $736,738.20. So it's a substantial savings to the district because of the monthly price drop per student over the 3 years. Are there any questions?
I didn't see any language that spoke to opting out or canceling the contract if there was data that supported that the children wasn't either using it enough or that they weren't showing any growth. I didn't see any language about terminating the contract early.
I can get that information for you.
Okay. Then my other question is with the essay part, do they support telling the children whether or not they have plagiarized some content, like using a Turnitin or whatever the system is to check for plagiarism? I was just curious about that.
I would assume so, but I'm not 100% sure, so I'll have to go back to you on that as well. That's a great question.
Those are my only
Yes.
questions.
Yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
I did have one more, I'm sorry. Would the program be used in conjunction with maybe a system where kids could stay after school and be monitored for implementation? And the only reason is because there's children that still need support to have the motivation to do it in a structured environment. So like if it's an after-school program in the library, for instance, that they can access it in a space where someone there is there to support what they do. I was just curious to that.
So if I'm not mistaken, currently that's a building level decision, that is if they have an after-school program, but if they, like I know Gibson's has an after-school program, I mean, I certainly would use it. Because even though you might have a classroom of 15 students and you're working in small groups, then you can have a group of students in one of the stations working on the paper.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hope that's offered. Thank you.
First of all, I think this is phenomenal. I've never heard of anything like this. Now, it's 24 hours. My first question is, well, they're a couple. It's available to all students in any grade?
Correct.
And any subject?
Correct.
So why would a second grader need access 24 hours to this?
It's just the way that the company is set up. And so when we originally, Dr. Nichols and I, when we originally discovered this, we were just going to target our Spanish-speaking students who are struggling. And then whenever we spoke to the representative, they say, we don't do that. It's a district-wide thing. And so we could see the benefit for that. As if a second grader, I would say that if a second grader is at home and they're working with a parent or a grandparent or somebody, it could be of assistance to them.
Do you know if there's what if we say we only want it available 12 hours a day? Is there a price break on that?
No.
I would, if I might, I would not limit us to that. Particularly, when you look at it as a district-wide, you have high school students who have play sports at night, and when they get home, it's late sometimes, and they're doing research papers and getting things done. And so I think that's one of the reasons it's 24 hours, 7 days a week. Some people wait till the weekend. Some parents may say, you're struggling in mathematics, you need to really do some practice over the weekend. So that's probably the reason. And so that way we don't limit ourselves by the cutoff. For the second graders, that's parent responsibility to make sure that their young one is not up all night. That goes across the board. But I think to have access 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even during the summer, when there's sometimes things scholars need to do, and on those breaks like winter break and Easter break.
I have a question. In making sure that we're using all of our financial resources wisely and getting the most from each dollar, I'm asking if we could consider buying the service on a trial basis, for instance, 1 year, to see if students are actually using it, if they're actually logging on. Or, and if not, then we would know whether or not we needed to use our funds could be put to better use or better spent in other forms of mediation and enhancement. That's my concern, that $700,000 is a lot of money, and if our kids are not logging on, and when you hear teachers say, I'm struggling to get them to log on to Google Classroom, if I can't get them to log on to Google Classroom, this may be a real challenge. And so, is it feasible that we purchase it for 1 year? I would rather see purchasing for 1 year and losing $27,000 than purchasing it for 3 years and losing $700,000.
If I'm not mistaken, that would be a board decision.
That is correct.
Yeah. So it would be whatever you guys would vote on to have.
And that may be one of the reasons that Dr. Armand Elliott asked about the out clause. And so we do have time between this meeting and the meeting we're asking for approval to get that information about the opt-out.
Okay. And then for the record, I only chose the 3 year just so we can save the money, but I certainly see your point.
I support Dr. Coleman's suggestion. I was wondering why a 3-year contract. And if I understand Dr. Singleton correctly, ESSER 3 ends in 2024, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's a year, if we go into a 3-year contract, ESSER will be gone by the time of the 3rd year. And I'm wondering, can you obligate a 3-year contract when your funds only last for 2 years?
Right, so, sorry. So ESSER 3 does go into September, which that 3rd year starts there's a window between July and September there for that 3rd year that could be used to support this. So again, part of the purchase could be done this fiscal year, next fiscal year, and then immediately after July in the other fiscal year. So what I'm saying is it can be done. We'll work out the details if this is the decision of the board to go with the 3-year contract. We'll try to make
2 months left in this school year.
Right. Understood. So if it is the desire, then I'll get with Dr. Kennedy and Dr. Nichols to work out the financial terms to make sure that we're not obligating the district.
I think it's a good program. I'm just concerned as Dr. Pullman with this being a 3-year contract.
Yes, understood.
And so I'll have the other 2 years available for you so you can see year 1 and year 2 and then year 3, and then as a board you can decide on which direction that you want to go. I will tell you, Dr. Coleman, that whenever we spend money like this, as we have done with our Renaissance system, that's something that I monitor and report out on, so that, because if we're going to spend any amount of money, then we need to make sure it's being implemented with fidelity.
I have one more follow-up question about the funds. Are they requiring the $700,000 up front, or will it be paid over the 3-year period? Because that makes a difference too.
Yeah.
So is it, hey, when you buy this, you buying $700?
So let me check on that with the contract portion of it as well.
Okay.
If we get the information prior to the board meeting, we should send it to the SAB prior to, and then that way we'll have a direction on which way to go.
Sounds good. Are there any other questions? All right, thank you.
The next item.
I would like to make a motion that we go with a 1-year subscription pending information on opting out.
This is not a action item.
I know, but that's so that when we get ready to approve, they will already have the subscription.
It's not an action item. It has to be one.
Okay. So we'll have to make the motion to do that.
When it goes on the consent agenda.
So the next item is item 8E, wayfaring place, students in transition transportation. This is the discussion item. Making this presentation is Dr. Tanya Patton. This is the item that we're asking also to come back for approval. So it is recommended that the SAB approve the agreement with SmartVest Taxi Services to provide transportation for students in transition at a cost not to exceed $200,000. This is in compliance with policy IGBCA. programs for homeless students. Dr. Patton.
Good evening again, everyone. Tonight, as Dr. Jolene said, I'm bringing before you an MOU with Wayfaring Place to provide transportation to students who are registered in our school district who are identified as students in transition. Again, this is in order to meet the requirements of the consent decree as well as the guidelines of the McKinney-Vento Act. This includes transporting students who live outside of our district to our district and transporting students who live inside of our district to other schools. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Our next item is 8F, Alternative Methods of Instruction, IMA. This presentation is being made by Dr. Stacy Nichols, Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. This is compliance with CSIP's Effective Instruction Goal 1 and District Policy IGCE, Non-Traditional Instructional Options.
Good evening, Special Administrative Board, Dr. Pruitt-Adams, and colleagues. This evening, I am requesting board discussion for the 2022-2023 Alternative Methods of Instruction Plan. The state legislature passed Senate Bill 604, providing districts and charter schools with the ability to use an alternative methods of instruction plan on days when there is an unexpected school and or district closure. Districts can make up a maximum of 36 school hours lost due to school closures with a state-approved AMI plan. The superintendent will determine when the AMI plan will be implemented by district staff. In addition, the plan will allow the opportunity for students to engage in meaningful learning on inclement weather days or emergency days when schools are closed and not in session. It will be at the district's discretion on whether the school is considered closed or if an AMI day must be implemented. Do you have any questions?
Are we able to check attendance of students participating when we have severe weather or whatever and using the AMI program?
Yes, attendance can be monitored online. If you go into the Google platform and settings, the teachers can monitor attendance, and also the teachers are required to put attendance into our SysK system daily.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I did have a question. I saw information about the MOCAP. Students are still considered enrolled in our district when they participate in that?
Yes, ma'am. Students are considered enrolled in our district. They participate in the MOCAP DESI's program.
Okay, and so the funding of that program, do we have to pay anything for that?
Yes, we do pay for our scholars to participate in MOCAP.
Okay.
We're currently investigating a virtual option of our own as well, and so when we are at the point of bringing that forward, we will do that. We have a policy that says we can, and DESI has said that we can, and we've actually started conversation with Melville, who is running their own virtual program.
Dr. Elliott, there was, in the payment of the checks, $100,000 check written to MOCAP. And I don't think that was budgeted, or was it budgeted?
Dr. Beckler, it was budgeted, although that budget, because we have 137 students registered in MOCAP, we previously had 3 or 4, but when we set up the budget, there was money in the account to cover that, but I am going to come to the board for...
So it's under budgeted?
Yes. Yes, sir.
I have a question in regards to attendance. So you're saying that they're taking attendance through Google Classroom. Is there any other way that, for instance, I know that in some districts they will use an assignment, completion of assignment to prove attendance. And once that assignment is completed, then that student is marked present. And sometimes this doesn't happen until a couple of days later, but it gives the student credit for the attendance and it proves that they at some point attended. I'm not sure how effective that is, but it is a way to have attendance. So that's my first question. Or is it merely just through the Google Classroom that the teacher takes attendance? Which one?
Yes, so you can monitor and take attendance via the Google platform in settings. However, teachers are required to use the district 6K system to input attendance. But you are correct with stating that students have to submit their assignments on the day of or by the next day. And that's a DESI's requirement, and that is written, that expectation is written in the AMI claim.
Great, thank you. And one other question, and you let me know if I'm moving ahead of you. I know that there is a difference between an AMI day and what is provided through MOCAP, and what happens when, let me give you an example, if a student is home because mom or dad is exposed to COVID, and so a student can't come to school. Is it considered providing an alternative form of assessment like virtual assessment if the teacher allows that student to join in maybe through a Google Meet so that that student can participate? He's feeling well, he's not sick, he's just home. Is that student allowed to participate through virtual classroom, or is that like you're providing an alternative? It's like, I don't want it to be seen like you are providing two forms of education. This is a student that is enrolled in Riverview, usually comes to school, not a MOCAP student. I'm not speaking for MOCAP students, but for Riverview Garden students who normally come to school and are in school every day. If someone is home sick and they can't come to school, can they join the classroom through virtual instruction?
You want me to take that one?
Yes, ma'am.
DESI has some very specific guidelines for attendance. If a student is quarantined because he or she has COVID, they can access their classroom teacher through Google Classroom. Our teachers are prepared for that. We cannot transition them to MOCAP. Prior to early in the pandemic, if they were quarantined, we could, but now that they're no longer requiring that you quarantine due to exposure, no. We were also told that if we had, we could not as a district close due to COVID. We were also told that if you have, if a teacher is out and you don't have enough teachers to cover class, you cannot close the building due to COVID. You can only close a building due to COVID if it is an outbreak among the students in that building. So the short answer to your question is, if I'm just sick at home, I am not subject to being able to access my teacher through virtual learning.
I cannot.
If I am just sick with a cold or a headache, or I just don't feel well, based upon DESI's standards, we cannot count that for attendance.
I'm not necessarily thinking of counting it for attendance, but I'm just saying, if student is out because mom and dad's quarantined, I'm gonna miss 10 days. Can I just log in just to get the instruction?
Right, if mom and dad have COVID and the student does not have symptoms, the student does not have to quarantine. That student can come to school. And so based upon, we have a COVID policy that we present twice a month, so it'll come back at the next meeting. We did it once a month. But based upon the guidelines that we received from the State Department, we cannot, we got questions from this earlier in the year. We actually sent the DESI plan for attendance to our parents, so they would know what we could and could not do.
Thank you.
Okay, G. Item 8G is now the salary increases for 22-23. Making this presentation are Dr. LaVon Singleton, Chief Financial Officer, and the newly certified with her superintendent credentials, Ms. Monica Williams. At the conclusion of the presentation, it is recommended that the Special Administrative Board approve the 5% increase for the 22-23 salary schedule and a 5% salary increase for administrators. A recommendation for approval will be presented later in this meeting. This item is in compliance with District Policy GCBA, Professional Staff Compensation, and Policy GDBA, Support Staff Compensation.
Good evening again, Special Administrative Board, Dr. Pruitt Adams, colleagues, and community. Tonight I will be presenting an item for discussion and approval later in the meeting. We're proposing a 5% increase to the 2022-2023 salary schedule. That will be 5% to the step schedule and then also 5% to the administrator range schedule. Employees will not move a step, however, the amount of the step will be increased by 5%. The budget impact is approximately $1.4 million. It is recommended that the Special Administrative Board approve the 5% increases for the 2022-2023 salary schedules and also for the administrator salary schedule. A recommendation for approval will be presented later in the meeting.
Yes, first of all, I support the salary increase, but I do have a question. Dr. Singleton or Ms. Williams, what percentage of our budget is dedicated to salaries?
So typically, and it's standard with most school districts, about 75% of your budget is salary and benefits.
Okay. And the reason I asked that question, we are going to have a budget workshop on May 19th, but we're already approving 75% of our budget. So there won't be much to approve. So I'm suggesting in the future that we try to have the budget workshop first to see if we've got enough money in the bank, which we do, to approve this. But in my judgment, we are doing this backwards by approving the salary increases, and then we're going to have the workshop, and we really will only be talking about 25% of the budget because we already approved 75%.
Okay.
I just wanted to add, I want to make sure I clarify what you're saying, Dr. Beckwith. Salaries, the increase is only $1.4 million. I think that's what we will be, that's what's being recommended. If we don't do an increase, then it's still the same salaries for next year.
And I'm not talking about not doing an increase at all. What I'm saying is the biggest part of the district budget is tied up in salaries. If we're going to do that before the budget workshop, I really don't see a good reason for having the budget workshop because we're only talking about 25% of the budget then. So I'm just saying either the budget workshop needs to be done earlier or the salary approval needs to be delayed until after the budget workshop in years to come.
And I hear you, and you're absolutely correct. I think where the difficulty comes in is, and we actually moved up our budget closing date this year. We asked, and Dr. Singleton be included, we had to have the vast majority of our budgetary items in by March the 31st. And that was so we could try to have the board workshop earlier. However, in trying to get all of the ESSER monies accounted for in a timely manner and getting different things from the state and other people, we weren't able to do the budget workshop earlier. In a perfect world, we would have. However, contracts have to go out on April the 15th. We were in negotiations. We're in a place where we are struggling to keep staff. And if we had put, and I hear you, but if we had put this off any later, you saw the personnel report today, I could almost assure you it would be worse. We are right now short 73 teachers. And my teachers are hinging on getting a pay increase. We are working diligently to bring the budget to closure so we can come to you on the 19th with a projected fund balance for next year. We are conscious, and I hear you, we are conscious of what you are saying. And for us, it was almost like the chicken or the egg, which comes first. And so we opted for the chicken coming with the pay increases and doing the other. But I do hear you.
And I appreciate those special circumstances. But I did ask the question, and what will be the fund balance at the end of the next school year? And I couldn't get an answer on that. The board requires a minimum 15% fund balance, okay? That led last year to the budget being cut by $3.3 million without informing the board or the budget managers. So I'm a little skeptical about dollars now, that they are what they say. Approving salary schedules in the future without knowing what your fund balance is going to be after you approve them, it's dangerous business.
I agree with you. The scenario that we sent to the board was that if we took this year's budget right now and we did the salary increases that are projected at the 1.4 million, we would go from what is currently a 17.36% fund balance down to a 16.96 fund balance. And so that kind of gave us some assurity, not perfect, but some assurity that it may be similar next year, particularly when we are watching our spending. And as we indicated earlier, our plan is to come forward with other ways to look at how we're spending funds and how we are managing. You heard me speak to zero-based budgeting. I know that doesn't answer your question, but know that we are really, Dr. Singleton will tell you, I'm on him constantly about ways of saving money, to include central purchasing. That's another way we can save money as we move forward. But really trying to make sure that once ESSER is gone, because like you, Dr. Beckwith, I tell him almost every week, ESSER money's going away. We have to be able to sustain as a district.
And you gave me that when I sent my email, you gave me those figures, but when I asked the question, the response I got walked around that and said it couldn't be predicted at this point in time. End of story. You don't have to respond.
I have a question for our concern. I noticed that we talked about competitive salaries before and losing individuals to other districts, but the food service staff don't begin to receive at least $15 until step 2, and the clerical staff and custodians to step 1. Is there a reason why we didn't try to start them at 15?
So when we did the initial analysis, we were, the recommendation was to look across all categories and give everybody an increase. We know that some employees have gone years without an increase. And so once we landed where we landed with the RG&EA, we felt that that same raise should apply to all categories. I have been talking with our superintendent, and I have shared with her, and I've shared with the board, and I'll share again. There are districts in our area that are going to a minimum salary, okay? And when I say that, Normandy is one. Normandy has a minimum of $15 an hour for all classified staff, all of the custodians, cooks, and by the way, Normandy offers their custodian and cooks benefits. We don't offer our cooks benefits, okay? U-City, we were privy to information from University City. The following year, not 22-23, but by 23-24, University City is having a starting salary of $20 an hour for their maintenance and cooks well.
I'm going to correct you on that.
Yes, I'm sorry.
They're getting a 3-point something raise this year.
Right.
And then a 4-point-something next year. However, if in any of those years, with their pay increase, they do not hit $20 an hour, they will be moved to $20 an hour.
Yes.
I am, as I mentioned last week, the last board meeting to the board, I am aggressively looking at salaries myself. I know that Ms. Williams has asked about doing a compensation study. But what I've done is I've pulled the Ed Plus information, and I am looking at all categories that we have related to districts that have a similar assessed evaluation. And I'm going to tell you the only district that has a similar assessed evaluation right now is Jennings. The others are a little bit higher than us, but I tried to stay within a certain range of assessed evaluation, which has me looking at Afton, Bayless, Hancock Place. I was showing it to Ms. Morrow real earlier. Normandy, Jennings, Valley Park. And what I'm trying to calculate now is the minimum salary, the maximum salary, the average salary, and the midpoint. And so my hope is to then come to the board within a couple of weeks with some type of recommendation to begin to at least move us in that direction. Going back to what Dr. Beckley said, if we even tried to be competitive with all of them, we would just deplenish anything that we have. But as we start to look at how we budget, how we spend, if we can make some gradual progressions, I think that will do so much for our faculty and staff to know that we are really looking at it and trying to move gradually in a direction.
Yes. And Dr. Pruitt-Adams, let me just add this one thing. And I think that salary progression is a great idea, but we also have to look at the other benefits as well.
Absolutely.
We have got to offer cooks benefits. We've got to offer DSOs benefits, or it's going to be a revolving door. You know, our DSOs make a decent hourly wage, but they're 9-month employees and they go 3 months in the summer without pay. So how can
convince the administration from recommending they go from 9 to 12?
We are looking at
Ms. Williams mentioned to me that was a problem. Then recommend to the board that they be 12 months. But let me go back to Normandy and what they're doing. And what is happening to the superintendent?
Well, we're in public.
No. Okay. Well, my point is, the president of that school board and I have talked. Okay. And one of the complaints was about the finances and so forth. So be careful about comparisons. Yeah, they may get it, but he won't be here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I just wanted to add, it's also the instructional assistants, they're 9-month employees, and also the secretary ones, they're 9-month employees. So that group, they don't receive an affordable benefits package. We do offer one, but it's a high deductible HSA, it's a $5,000 deductible, so many don't sign up for the benefits package.
And my last comment, I'm so glad our superintendent mentioned assess the valuation. Some complain what they're making about in Ferguson, Florissant, and they have over $1 billion in assessed valuation. We believe, I think we have 218 million.
About 237
million. Or in Hazelwood that has over $1 billion. So you have to compare apples to apples. So I'm glad that Dr. Pruitt-Adams is trying to compare with school districts that have a similar assessed valuation that we have. If we tried to match Ferguson, Florissant, or Hazelwood, we'd be bankrupt pretty soon.
Yes, sir.
Last question, do we have a timeline on supporting the research on the benefits?
I don't know about the benefits. I'm really looking at salaries right now. I'd have to get with Ms. Williams and Dr. Singleton on that. It is my hope. And I'm just going to be honest with navigating all this going on right now. I'm chunking time. That's all I worked on yesterday. Today, I had to work on turnaround schools. But my hope is to, on our meeting on the 10th, to come back with the central office realignment, and then that impacts the staffing plan, and then make that recommendation at that time. Because we will have to technically now reissue contracts should the board increase to 5%. And so my hope is to try to get this done by the 10th. That's my goal for the South.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Our next item, why are you sitting down, Dr. Singleton?
Isn't she alone on the next one?
Well, you were part of that group, she may need to call you up. Along with some other people. Okay, I'm sorry. Item 8H is the 2224 RGSD RGNEA Collective Bargaining Tentative Agreement. Ms. Williams and members of her negotiations team who are present will chime in when needed, tied to this agreement. This item, at the conclusion, is recommended that the Special Administrative Board approve the 2022 to 2024 collective bargaining agreement with RGNEA for teachers. A recommendation for approval will be presented later in the meeting. This is in compliance with District Policy HA1, negotiation with employee representatives.
All right, tonight I will be presenting the item for discussion and approval later in the meeting. The collective bargaining process with RGNEA for teachers is complete. There were a number of changes to the 2018-2019 agreement, and you see the bullet points there for those sections. The RGNEA membership ratified the tentative agreement last Friday. When we look at the budget impact for teacher salaries for a 5% increase, we're looking at approximately $859,721.72. There will also be a budget impact for when teachers miss their plan time or their lunch period and they have to cover classrooms. They will receive $35 for that. We don't know the budget impact of that because we have not been tracking that data in the past, and the coverage for the lunch period is actually new to the agreement. For the perfect attendance, we've increased the amount from $95 to $200 per semester, and that will approximately increase the budget by $5,000. It is recommended that the Special Administrative Board approve the 2022-2024 collective bargaining agreement with the RGNEA for teachers. A recommendation for approval will be presented later in the meeting.
Yes, and my comment is the same as for the salary increases. The 5% is embedded in the CBA, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so we are approving that before we had a budget workshop. So I'm just asking in the future, if we plan this right, we can approve this after we have the budget workshop.
There are no more questions. That concludes the items for information and discussion, and I now turn the agenda back over to our president, Ms. Maureen.
Thank you. We will now move to motion to approve the items under the consent agenda.
So move.
Second.
Moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
I did it. Where would it be appropriate to amend an item before we
Paper item.
At the beginning of the agenda, when we do the agenda, to amend it. When we get ready to approve the agenda, that would be the time that you would, so that would be like item 2 on our agenda. The approval of the agenda, that's when it would be appropriate.
Okay, so like we just did the discussion, I was really interested in the board considering the adjustment up to the 15 for the food service clerical and custodian.
That's not on the consent agenda. You would do that down at the action.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out where I would do it.
When we get
Okay,
down there.
Thank you.
And now to the action items.
We didn't vote.
Then we'll okay, Shay. I think we said, I said all in favor.
What are?
Consent
The
agenda.
consent agenda.
Oh, yeah, gotcha.
I know, okay. So we're now down to item 11, the items for action. First item is the Board of Election Commission certification of election results.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item B, the 2022-2023 salary increase.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. I would like to make a motion that the food service clerical and
There's already a motion on the floor.
that's the point that you amend. So I make a motion to amend the salary schedule for food service clerical and custodian to be shifted up. So where the new hire is indicated, will begin The pay for food service would be shifted to new hire. The clerical pay at step 1 will be shifted to new hire, and the custodial staff, step 1 will be moved to new hire, and that will get everyone beginning pay at a 15, and then to whatever additional steps that need to be added will be added accordingly. Is that understood?
So I just want to make sure I'm hearing you.
Okay.
So for food service, where it says a cook scale 1 is a new hire, it's currently $12.86. You're saying move that to $15.
So, yeah, so whatever the step is, so are you referencing the clerical right now?
No, I was looking at food service. I thought you.
Okay, food service.
Point of order, point of order. There needs to be a second to the motion first before we.
Oh, so she can ask questions, okay.
If you have a second, I thought we could do that. I wasn't sure. Who made the motion?
I made the motion.
Oh, okay. Is there a second?
Motion failed.
And it falls?
No,
Fails.
one second.
Okay. Need to vote on 2022-2023 salary increase. All in favor?
Aye.
And then finally,
Nay.
finally, C, 2022 to 2024 RGSD to RGNEA collective bargaining agreement.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No further business to discuss.
So move.
Second. Second.
No, you have,
Oh, new item. New item.
Oh, I apologize. Okay, and this is item wayfaring place
Right.
for the SIT program. I apologize for that.
Right.
I scribbled on the paper.
So
So
moved.
have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
With no further business to discuss.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thank you, guys.
Doctor. Approximately how much are we over? And, okay, but try to make sure that we put